Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Catalina Gillies. Ryan Benazzo is away this evening. An announcement many Thunder Bay residents have been waiting for is set to take place in early November. The United States will finally be opening the border for land travel for Canadians after being virtually closed since March of 2020. Danielle Bain reports.
It's been 2 months since Canada opened its land border to non-essential U.S. travelers, and next month Canada can finally expect the same. Although there are still many questions surrounding the U.S. border reopening, Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu says this is something many Canadians have been waiting for a long time.
There are many people that have an integrated life with other Americans, with family members and other reasons that they want to go to the United States. So obviously there are some details that are unfolding as we speak, but I think the relationship between the United States and Canada is a strong one, and obviously this is an important step.
Some Thunder Bay residents we spoke to have differing opinions when it comes to the border reopening.
I've been waiting for the border to open for a long time. I have one son in Denver, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. It's been a year and a half. I only see him on Skype. My grandson's there as well.
I actually prefer that they keep the border closed for a little bit longer until everyone's vaccinated.
Another local resident says he's open to the idea of traveling again, but wanted to be cautious.
Well, not this year, probably in the spring, later on, when it gets warmer, maybe go down to the south somewhere, but not immediately.
Officials at Ryden's Border Store and Grand Portage Lodge and Casino are all welcoming the opening of the border to Canadian travelers. The U.S. will not require a negative COVID test upon entering the country, but will require proof of vaccination. However, Canada does require a negative PCR test to re-enter the country, which can cost over $100 to get in the U.S. Hajdu would not reveal whether or not her government has plans to adjust their policies to make it easier and cheaper for Canadians to travel south.
To be determined, and we'll continue to rely on the health officials to give us their best possible advice to reach that goal of ensuring that we're doing our absolute level best to reduce and prevent importations.
It's not clear just yet whether or not the AstraZeneca vaccine or mixed-dose vaccines will be accepted as a verified vaccine status at U.S. land borders. But the American Center for Disease Control and Prevention will be working on these guidelines heading into November. Danielle Bain, TBT News.
And we'll have more on the border reopening a little later on in the news hour. The law firm handling the class action lawsuit related to the 2012 flood and sewage backups in Thunder Bay says they're expecting the case to finally go to trial next year. That would mark a full decade since the catastrophic event, which saw hundreds of homes damaged, mainly in the city's East End. Jonathan Wilson has this update.
We're very confident in our case, but we are certainly prepared to take the matter to trial.
Megan McPhee is a partner in the Toronto law firm Kim Spencer McPhee, which took over the $300 million class action for the 2012 flood and sewage damage several years ago. She says the case is about to move into the final phase before it heads to trial.
So we've been exchanging documents with the defendant. We've received approximately 5,500 documents so far, with more to come, we expect. And we're currently scheduled to proceed with oral discoveries the first week or early November. And discoveries are really the last major step before trial.
The major flood on May 28, 2012, overwhelmed the Atlantic Avenue wastewater treatment plant, causing sewage to back up into hundreds of homes. 6 homeowners originally signed on as representative plaintiffs. One of them has since passed away in the intervening years. The other 5 will provide their evidence next month to the city's lawyers during the oral discoveries, while McPhee will interview the city's representative. The case against the city focuses on the actions taken leading up to the rainstorm.
It was designed and expected that it would handle the rainfall that it experienced on that evening in May 2012, but that due to omissions and certain failures on the part of the city, the plant was lost, and it was lost for a period of several weeks. And that resulted in sewage being backed up into class members' homes, into their basements, remaining there for a prolonged period of time, and resulting in very serious damages, and in some cases, class members losing their homes and their possessions entirely.
Although an out-of-court settlement is still possible, McPhee says at this stage they're expecting the class action to go to trial sometime in 2022, a full decade after the fateful event.
We're doing everything that we can to get the case resolved and to get money into the hands of class members, but there are some things that are simply out of plaintiffs' hands. But certainly from our perspective, we've done everything we can to push it and we'll continue to push it. It's been 9 years since the flood and we're ready to go. So we'd like to have the trials heard as soon as the court can hear us.
No one from the city was available for comment. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
The move to allow full capacity at sporting events in Ontario has left the hospitality industry asking, what about us? Restaurant owners were set to discuss the matter yesterday with Minister Lisa MacLeod, who oversees sports. But there was just one problem. She didn't show up. Colin DeMello has that story.
For many restaurants in this province, the Maple Leaf home opener is a money-making moment. But some in the industry are worried their profits, just like their seats, will be capped.
I totally understand that we all want to see and cheer on the Raptors and the Leafs in the home stadium, and that's amazing. But let's also be able to cheer them on from our local restaurants.
The central question from restaurateurs has been why them and not us? A question the government has not been able to answer. To make matters worse, a scheduled meeting between Cabinet Minister Lisa MacLeod and the restaurant industry yesterday derailed when MacLeod failed to show up.
I'm sure the restaurant owners or the representatives would have only been looking for a genuine opportunity to make their voices heard. To me, that must be incredibly discouraging for them.
The Ford government has privately started showing signs that it is willing to budge on restaurant restrictions. The province says as public health indicators remain stable or improve in Ontario, the Chief Medical Officer of Health will continue to monitor the data and make an evaluation on restrictions. Critics say that data should be made public.
What does the evidence really show? What does the data really show? And can we permit restaurants and other venues to get the same kind of treatment that we see from large sporting venues?
In the meantime, Restaurants Canada says the wage subsidies that helped the sector survive the past 19 months are coming to an end, putting 80% of restaurants in jeopardy over the winter months. Some are calling for provincial assistance as well.
We've also asked for more financial supports as they continue to have to operate at reduced capacity. They're often operating at a loss. Just to open up the doors to an establishment has a cost, food, labor, utilities, what have you. So they need some more financial support.
But the Ford government has not indicated whether another round of small business grants is in the works. Colin DeMello, CTV News.
For the second year in a row, there will be no Remembrance Day ceremony at the Fort William Gardens this November 11th. Instead, the Southside service will once again be held at the cenotaph outside City Hall. Just 25 people were allowed to be present at last year's gathering at the same location. But this year, members of the public are encouraged to attend, and mask wearing is recommended. The usual Remembrance Day services at the Garden saw crowds of up to 3,500 people. The province recently announced a return to full capacity at sport venues, but organizer Ken Milenko says the requirements for checking proof of vaccination and screening was too much to take on for a large indoor service.
We realized very quickly we don't have the volunteer support to be able to handle that kind of capacity. It takes an enormous amount of work for our volunteers throughout the legions in the south side of Thunder Bay as it is. So we made the call that we'd step away from this year's indoor remembrance service and proceed with the outdoor service in front of City Hall.
Milenko says wreath purchases and poppy donations are greatly appreciated, as those funds will directly support veterans right here in Thunder Bay. Milenko is also hopeful that a full capacity ceremony can be held at the Gardens next year. The Ministry of Transportation opened the floor to area residents last night as part of their process to determine the future of a stretch of Highway 61. The public consultation gave locals the chance to look at options for the 3 intersections from the Thunder Bay Airport to Loch Lomond Road. Residents were able to ask questions and voice their concern on specific changes to their closest juncture. Some options include costly changes to the roadway, such as overpasses and underpasses. The MTO's engineering firm on the project says the province won't go a cheaper route if there's a better option available.
The selection is based on making the right long-term solution that's going to be there for, a century. So it's better to do it once and do it right and then put in some of the costs for mitigation. So there may be some houses that need to be purchased. There may be changes to the sports fields.
Feedback from all public consultations will be used to select a preferred plan, with more community input on those plans coming next summer. The Port of Thunder Bay continues to experience reduced grain shipments as the prairie harvest yield hits a 10-year low. The monthly port statistics for the month of September have just been released, and Mitchell Ringos has more.
The total amount of grain loaded was down 30% last month, from 935,000 metric tons in September 2020 to 640,000 for the same month this year. As far as overall cargo totals, the number dropped from 1 million tons to 774,000 year over year. The grain harvest in the prairies was impacted by drought conditions this summer. Port of Thunder Bay Director of Communications Chris Heikkinen says in supply chains and shipping, there will always be fluctuations.
This year happens to be a lower year, especially compared with last year, which was like a 25-year high for the port. So it's not like a doom and gloom situation. It's more like one of these trends and we're in a lower year. And next year we hope for better things.
Heikkinen says with the heavily reduced grain shipments, the port has put their focus into adding different cargo, with potash shipments as their highlight for September, as they doubled their monthly average, along with delivering a 220-ton gas turbine generator that was offloaded at Kiefer Terminal. Heikkinen says the port continues to diversify their cargo.
We're always working towards developing new lines of business, and that can be seen in some of these break bulk shipments at Kiefer Terminal, like the pipe that you see behind me. We've also branched into imports of phosphate fertilizer.
The total number of vessels coming in were also lower, with 35 ships throughout September compared to 46 in the same month last year. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
The Community Economic Development Commission and Tourism Thunder Bay have provided the Silver Islet General Store with $48,000 from the Municipal Accommodation Tax Fund. City Tourism Manager Paul Pepe says they chose Silver Islet Store to receive hotel tax funding because it combines cultural, culinary, and environmentally stable elements, along with being a big draw to support tourism partners in Thunder Bay. With the nearby Sleeping Giant Park seeing around 75,000 visitors per year, the Silver Islet Store is an added attraction for domestic, U.S., and international travelers alike. Store owners Jeff and Sandy Corrala says they greatly appreciate the financial support, which will help them complete a major restoration of the 150-year-old store, including new solar panels and other improvements to the iconic landmark. A Thunder Bay resident has cashed in with a $100,000 instant crossword winning ticket. Doreen Downton matched all the words on her ticket to earn the top prize. The newly retired grandmother says she's been playing instant crossword for almost 30 years and plans to pay some bills and treat herself with the winnings. Downton purchased the ticket at a J&W confectionery on City Road. Congratulations, Doreen. Well, Fiona, it's another gray and rainy day out there in the city.
Yeah, we're on a